Welcome, dear viewers, to a chilling exploration of the unknown. Tonight, we delve into the unsettling world of imaginary friends, those companions born of a child's imagination. But what happens when these figments of fancy turn sinister? We're about to embark on a countdown of the creepiest imaginary friend stories ever told. These tales, whispered in hushed tones and shrouded in darkness, will send chills down your spine and leave you questioning the very nature of reality. These tales are not for the faint of heart, so proceed with caution. You never know what lurks in the shadows of a child's mind. Our first story takes us to a quiet suburban home, where a young girl named Sally found solace in the company of her imaginary friend, Mr. Giggles. Mr. Giggles, with his wide, painted grin and mismatched button eyes, was always by Sally's side, whispering secrets only she could hear. But Mr. Giggles wasn't content with simply being a playmate. He craved more, urging Sally to act out in ways that chilled her parents to the bone. It began with small acts of defiance, disobeying her parents, talking back and treating her toys with unusual cruelty. But Mr. Giggles' influence grew stronger, his whispers becoming more insistent, more demanding. Soon, Sally was stealing from her classmates, pulling pranks that bordered on dangerous, and her once innocent laughter took on a disturbing, almost malicious edge. Her parents, at their wits' end, sought help from child psychologists. But Sally refused to betray Mr. Giggles. "He's my best friend," she would say, her eyes wide and vacant. "He'd never let anything bad happen to me." But something was very wrong. One day, Sally's parents discovered her torturing their pet cat. A chillingly gleeful smile on her face as Mr. Giggles egged her on. That was the final straw. They sought the help of a priest, desperate to rid their daughter of the entity that had taken root in her young mind. The priest, sensing a darkness within the home, performed a series of intense prayers and blessings, the air thick with incense and fear. Sally thrashed and screamed, her voice echoing with an anger that belied her age. And then, as abruptly as it began, the struggle ended. Sally collapsed, her eyes losing their vacant stare. Mr. Giggles was gone. To this day, Sally has no memory of Mr. Giggles or the horrifying acts she committed under his influence, but some say on quiet nights, if you listen closely, you can still hear a faint giggle echoing in the shadows of that suburban home. Timmy, a bright and imaginative boy, had always been different. He possessed an uncanny ability to know things he shouldn't, to predict events before they unfolded. His parents attributed it to an overactive imagination, but Timmy knew better. He had a secret, a companion named Whisper who lived within the depths of his mind. Whisper, as his name suggested, spoke in hushed, sibilant tones, revealing secrets that sent shivers down Timmy's spine. He knew when classmates' parents were arguing, when neighbors were facing financial ruin, when tragedy was about to strike. At first, Timmy was terrified of Whisper and the darkness his knowledge brought, but as time went on, a strange sense of power grew within him. He became fascinated by Whisper's insights, his ability to peer into the hidden lives of those around him. Whisper, sensing Timmy's growing acceptance, began to reveal more, his whispers becoming bolder, more manipulative. "Tell her," Whisper would urge, referring to a girl in Timmy's class, "tell her about her parents' secret." And Timmy, intoxicated by the power of this forbidden knowledge, would comply, watching with a mixture of fear and fascination as the girl's world crumbled around her. The line between right and wrong blurred, and Timmy, once an innocent child, became a vessel for Whisper's insidious whispers. His parents, noticing the change in their son, grew increasingly alarmed. Timmy had become withdrawn, his eyes holding a chilling knowingness that sent shivers down their spines. They tried to reach him, to understand the source of his torment, but Timmy refused to betray Whisper. "He's my friend," he would say, his voice a hollow echo of its former self. "He understands me." As Timmy grew older, the whispers intensified, driving him deeper into isolation and despair. He became a recluse, haunted by the secrets he carried and the darkness that had consumed his childhood. Some say that Timmy eventually managed to break free from Whisper's grasp, to silence the voice that had haunted him for so long. Others believe that he remains trapped, forever bound to the entity that stole his innocence. Our next story takes us into the heart of a small town where darkness held a different kind of terror for a young boy named Daniel. Daniel was plagued by nightmares, vivid and disturbing visions that left him trembling in fear long after the sun had risen. But it was the presence he felt in the darkness, the unseen visitor who shared his room each night, that truly terrified him. He called him Shadow Man. Shadow Man never spoke, but his presence was always felt, a cold, oppressive weight that settled over Daniel's chest as he lay in bed, paralyzed by fear. He could sense Shadow Man moving around his room, his unseen form brushing against his bedsheets, his ragged breathing echoing in the silence. Daniel's parents dismissed his terrors as nightmares, but they couldn't ignore the drastic change in their son. He became withdrawn, his eyes shadowed with fear, his once vibrant laughter replaced with a haunted silence. Desperate, they sought help from doctors, therapists, anyone who might be able to explain the terror that gripped their son. But Daniel refused to speak of Shadow Man, fearing that giving him a voice would only strengthen his hold. As the weeks turned into months, Shadow Man's presence grew stronger, his nocturnal visits more frequent and terrifying. Daniel's nightmares intensified, filled with images of Shadow Man's decaying face, his eyes glowing with malevolent intent. One night, Daniel's parents were awakened by their son's blood-curdling screams. They rushed to his room, their hearts pounding with terror, to find Daniel sitting upright in bed, his eyes wide with fear, his body trembling uncontrollably. "He's here," Daniel whispered, his voice hoarse with terror. "Shadow Man is here." Following Daniel's terrified gaze, they saw it, a fleeting shadow, darker than the surrounding darkness, disappearing into the depths of the closet. That was the night Daniel's parents finally believed. They moved to a new town, hoping to leave the horrors of their past behind. But some shadows, it seems, are not so easily outrun. To this day, Daniel sleeps with the lights on, haunted by the memory of Shadowman and the terror that clung to him in the darkness. Chapter 4. Grandma's Ghostly Twin. Our next tale takes us to a quaint countryside cottage, where a young girl named Lily formed an unbreakable bond with her grandmother, Eleanor. Eleanor, with her warm smile and gentle eyes, was Lily's confidant, her protector, the keeper of her secrets. But their idyllic world came crashing down when Eleanor passed away, leaving Lily heartbroken and utterly alone. It was during those dark, grief-stricken days that Lily's imaginary friend appeared, a comforting presence in the wake of such profound loss. But there was something unsettlingly familiar about Lily's new companion. She looked exactly like Eleanor. Lily, initially comforted by this uncanny resemblance, embraced her imaginary grandmother, sharing secrets and stories she never had the chance to tell the real Eleanor. But as the days turned into weeks, a creeping sense of unease settled over Lily's heart. The imaginary Eleanor, while bearing a striking resemblance to her namesake, possessed a coldness, a detachment that sent shivers down Lily's spine. Her once warm eyes now held a distant, almost mournful gaze, and her smile, once so full of life, seemed strained as if forced. Lily tried to ignore these unsettling differences, clinging to the belief that her beloved grandmother was somehow watching over her. But the strange occurrences continued. Objects would move inexplicably in the dead of night, whispers seemed to emanate from Eleanor's old room, and Lily would often wake to find her imaginary grandmother standing at the foot of her bed, her cold, lifeless eyes staring into her soul. Lily's parents, noticing the drastic change in their daughter's behavior, grew increasingly concerned. She had become withdrawn, her laughter replaced with a nervous silence, her once bright eyes clouded with fear. They tried to talk to her, to understand the source of her terror, but Lily refused to speak of her ghostly companion, fearing that doing so would only strengthen its hold on her. As Lily grew older, the line between reality and imagination blurred, and the comforting presence of her imaginary grandmother morphed into something sinister, something that filled her with a sense of dread she couldn't quite explain. Some say that Lily eventually managed to break free from the clutches of her ghostly companion to find peace after years of torment. Others believe that she remains tethered to her grandmother's spectral double, forever bound to the entity that haunted her childhood. Chapter 5. The Angry Playmate. Our next story takes us into the world of Ethan, a shy and introverted boy who found solace in the company of his imaginary friend, a boisterous and energetic entity named Ripper. Ripper, with his wild, untamed energy and mischievous grin, became Ethan's constant companion, his confidant in a world that often felt overwhelming. But Ripper, unlike most imaginary friends, possessed a jealous and possessive streak that would soon reveal a darker side to his playful nature. At first, Ripper seemed content with being the center of Ethan's world. They would spend countless hours lost in their own world of make-believe, building forts, battling imaginary foes, and escaping into fantastical realms where anything was possible. But as Ethan grew older, the demands of the real world began to intrude on their idyllic existence. School, with its social pressures and academic challenges, left Ethan with less and less time for Ripper. At first, Ripper's displeasure manifested as subtle acts of defiance. Toys would go missing, carefully constructed Lego towers would be mysteriously toppled, and Ethan would often hear Ripper's angry whispers echoing in his ears, urging him to abandon his boring real-life obligations and return to their world of play. But as Ethan's attention continued to drift, Ripper's anger grew, his playful nature replaced with a volatile and unpredictable rage. Ethan would return home from school to find his room in disarray, his belongings strewn about as if a tornado had ripped through it. Drawings he had painstakingly created would be defaced, ripped to shreds, and Ethan would sometimes wake in the middle of the night to find Ripper standing over his bed, his eyes blazing with fury, his voice a guttural growl that sent shivers down Ethan's spine. Ethan's parents, alarmed by their son's increasingly erratic behavior and the unexplained chaos that seemed to follow him, sought help from child psychologists and therapists. But Ethan, terrified of Ripper's wrath, refused to betray his imaginary friend, fearing the consequences of revealing his secret. As Ethan grew older, Ripper's hold on him tightened, his presence becoming a suffocating weight that threatened to consume him entirely. Chapter 6. The Vanishing Friend. In a bustling city filled with the echoes of 1,000 stories, a young girl named Olivia found solace in the company of her imaginary friend Sam. Sam, with his kind eyes and gentle demeanor, was Olivia's constant companion, her rock in a world that often felt chaotic and overwhelming. But Sam harbored a peculiar secret, one that would leave Olivia feeling both confused and increasingly terrified. Whenever an adult entered the room, Sam would vanish. At first, Olivia found it amusing, this game of hide-and-seek her imaginary friend seemed so fond of playing. She would giggle as Sam would disappear into thin air just as her parents entered the room, only to reappear by her side the moment they left. But as Olivia grew older, a sense of unease began to creep into her heart. Why was Sam so afraid of adults? What was he hiding? She would pepper Sam with questions, her young mind struggling to comprehend his strange behavior. But Sam would always evade her inquiries, his silence speaking volumes. Olivia's parents, initially amused by their daughter's imaginary friend, grew increasingly concerned by Sam's peculiar habit of disappearing. They would try to observe Sam when Olivia wasn't looking, hoping to catch a glimpse of this elusive companion, but to no avail. Sam was like a phantom, visible only to Olivia and vanishing without a trace whenever an adult drew near. Olivia's world became a tangled web of confusion and fear. She loved Sam dearly, but his constant disappearances left her feeling isolated, alone in a world that seemed to be hiding a sinister secret. She began to withdraw from her parents, her once vibrant personality fading as the fear and uncertainty gnawed at her young mind. Olivia's parents, desperate to understand their daughter's growing distress, sought help from child psychologists and therapists. But Olivia, torn between her love for Sam and her growing fear, refused to speak of her vanishing friend, fearing that doing so would only make him disappear forever. Chapter 7. The Secret Teller. In a quiet suburban neighborhood where secrets whispered through manicured lawns and behind closed doors, a young girl named Sophia possessed an unsettling gift. She knew things she shouldn't. Her source, her imaginary friend, a mysterious and ethereal being named Anya. Anya, with her piercing gaze and unsettlingly knowing smile, would whisper secrets into Sophia's ear, revealing the hidden lives of their neighbors, their deepest fears, their darkest desires. At first, Sophia was both intrigued and terrified by Anya's revelations. She would listen with a mixture of fascination and dread as Anya unveiled the infidelity of a seemingly happy couple the financial ruin lurking beneath a veneer of affluence, the simmering resentment festering within the walls of a seemingly perfect family. But as Sophia grew older, the weight of these secrets began to take their toll. She found herself ostracized by her peers, labeled a liar and a troublemaker as she inadvertently let slip snippets of information she had no business knowing. Her parents, initially dismissive of Sophia's claims, grew increasingly concerned. As her behavior became more erratic, her once innocent chatter replaced with a disturbing knowingness that sent shivers down their spines. Sophia's world became a minefield of whispers and suspicion, her once idyllic childhood tainted by the knowledge that lurked beneath the surface of her seemingly perfect neighborhood. She longed to confide in someone, to share the burden of Anya's secrets, but fear kept her silent, trapping her in a web of her own making. As Sophia grew older, Anya's whispers intensified, her revelations becoming darker, more insidious. Sophia found herself caught in a dangerous game, a pawn in Anya's twisted machinations, her life spiraling out of control as the secrets she carried threatened to destroy everything she held dear. Chapter 8: The Closet Dweller. In a rambling Victorian house with its creaking floorboards and shadowy corners, a young boy named Benjamin harbored a chilling secret within the depths of his closet, an imaginary friend named Chester. Chester, unlike most imaginary friends, refused to leave the confines of the closet, his presence marked by the faint rustling of clothes and the occasional muffled giggle that sent shivers down Benjamin's spine. At first, Benjamin was both intrigued and terrified by Chester. He would spend hours sitting outside his closet door, his heart pounding in his chest as he listened to the strange noises emanating from within. He would leave small toys and drawings as offerings, hoping to appease Chester and perhaps catch a glimpse of his elusive companion. But Chester remained hidden, his presence felt but never seen, his motives a mystery that gnawed at Benjamin's young mind. As Benjamin grew older, his fear of Chester morphed into a strange sort of fascination. He would engage in one-sided conversations with his closet-dwelling companion, sharing his secrets, his fears, his dreams, his voice barely a whisper as he strained to hear Chester's response. But Chester's replies, when they came, were always muffled, distorted, as if spoken from the bottom of a well, their meaning obscured by the layers of clothing that separated them. Benjamin's parents, alarmed by their son's increasingly bizarre behavior and the strange noises emanating from his closet, grew increasingly concerned. They would try to convince Benjamin that Chester was just his imagination, but Benjamin refused to believe them. He knew Chester was real. He could feel his presence, hear his whispers, sense his dark, unblinking eyes watching him from the shadows. Chapter 9: The Disturbing Artist. In a small town where creativity was celebrated and imagination ran wild, a young girl named Emily possessed an extraordinary gift. She could bring her drawings to life, her muse, her imaginary friend, a shadowy and enigmatic figure named Scribbles. Scribbles, as his name suggested, was a master of the artistic craft, his ethereal hand guiding Emily's as she created breathtaking works of art that seemed to pulsate with a life of their own. But there was a darkness to Scribbles' creations, a disturbing undercurrent that hinted at something sinister lurking beneath the surface. Emily's early drawings, filled with vibrant colors and whimsical creatures, were a source of joy and wonder for both her and her parents. But as Emily grew older, her artwork took on a darker, more unsettling tone. Her canvases filled with grotesque figures, nightmarish landscapes and haunting portraits that seemed to stare back at the viewer with an unnerving intensity. Her parents, initially proud of their daughter's artistic talent, grew increasingly disturbed by the disturbing imagery that flowed from her fingertips. They tried to steer Emily towards brighter subjects, to encourage her to tap into the joy and innocence of her earlier works, but their efforts proved futile. Scribbles' influence was too strong, his hold on Emily's imagination absolute. Emily's world became consumed by her art. Her days and nights spent hunched over her canvases, her eyes burning with a feverish intensity as she channeled Scribbles' dark visions. Her once vibrant personality faded, replaced by a brooding intensity that both fascinated and terrified those who crossed her path. Emily's parents, desperate to understand their daughter's transformation and to break Scribbles' hold on her, sought help from art therapists and psychologists, but Emily, fiercely protective of her imaginary muse, refused to betray Scribbles, her silence a testament to the power he held over her. As Emily grew older, her artwork gained notoriety. Her disturbing canvases displayed in galleries and museums around the world, each brushstroke a chilling reminder of the darkness that lay at the heart of her extraordinary gift. Chapter 10. The Whispering Nightmare. In a quaint suburban home where darkness held a different kind of terror, a young girl named Olivia was plagued by nightmares, vivid and disturbing visions that left her trembling in fear long after the sun had risen. But it was the whispers, the soft, insidious whispers that seemed to seep from the very walls of her room, that truly terrified her. She couldn't understand the words, their meaning obscured by the static of sleep and the pounding of her own heart, but their tone, filled with malice and dread, sent chills down her spine. Olivia's parents, initially dismissive of their daughter's night terrors, grew increasingly concerned as her nightmares intensified, her sleep disturbed by blood-curdling screams and incoherent mumbling. They would rush to her room, their hearts pounding with fear, to find Olivia thrashing in her bed, her eyes wide with terror, her small body drenched in sweat. They would try to comfort her, to soothe her fears, but Olivia would shrink away from their touch, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for the source of the whispers. Olivia's world became a waking nightmare, her days haunted by the fear of what the night might bring. She withdrew from her friends, her once bubbly personality replaced by a haunted silence, her eyes reflecting the terror that consumed her. Olivia's parents, desperate to help their daughter, consulted doctors, therapists, anyone who might be able to explain the source of her torment. But Olivia, terrified of the whispers and what they might reveal, refused to speak of them, her silence only deepening the mystery surrounding her affliction. As Olivia grew older, the whispers intensified, their presence becoming a constant companion, a sinister soundtrack to her life. She tried to drown them out with music, with books, with the comforting sounds of human interaction, but they were always there, lurking beneath the surface, waiting for a moment of weakness to seep back into her consciousness. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed these creepy tales, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more spine-chilling stories. The next time you see a child talking to their imaginary friend, take a moment to wonder, who are they really talking to? And remember, sometimes the scariest things are the ones we can't see. Sweet dreams.